All right, welcome in to the Big Hitters Only podcast. It is Tuesday, November 26th at 2:21 a.m. The Tar Heels just came back down 21 to defeat Dayton, the Dayton Flyers, 92-90 in the Maui Invitational, first round of the Maui Invitational. We have Spenser Dalton for his second appearance on the Big Hitters Only podcast, and we have producer Connor Sparrow, who's becoming a regular on our reaction podcast. All right, boys, we were texting during the whole game. What a game. I mean, what a game to stay up for. Made it worth it. UNC was down 18 at the half, had a lackluster final, 12, 15 minutes of the first half, and then kind of gradually came back and then just started nailing shots, trading punches, and ended up winning by 2. RJ hit, I think, 4 free throws to close it out. I don't really know where to start. It was just a great game, a great kind of test of resilience, and just kind of playing loose in that second half, defending, finding a lineup that worked, and then nailing shots and getting the ball into the hot hands. Quick stats before we go to Spenser. RJ had 30 points, 4 threes. I think most of those came in the second half. And Seth had 27. Those are your stars. Cadeau had 10. Elliot Cadeau missed most of the second half with 4 fouls. But and other than that, man, Jalen Washington had 9. I thought Jalen Washington was kind of clutch there at the end there. But Spenser, your initial thoughts?
Kind of similar to the Kansas game, tale of two halves. But obviously, this one worked out in our favor. I mean, really similar to the Kansas game. I think we might have even trailed by 21 at some point in the first half to Kansas. Trailed by 21 tonight against Dayton. They looked and Dayton looked really sharp in the first half. They were hitting shots. They were playing hard. They were playing good defense, getting little deflections and steals. Heels not doing much of anything. And then same kind of thing. No like huge 15-0 runs or anything like that. I think we went on like an 8-2 run and then maybe an 11-4 run or something like that in the second half. But just whittled away at that lead throughout the second half and then finished really strong. Quite a bit stronger than in the Kansas game, obviously. So again, tale of two halves and really pumped that they could pull this one out tonight.
And this shows you the greatness of having a guy like RJ. He was just nailing shots. You're just like, all right, give the ball to RJ, let him shoot from deep. You know, they're feeding him the ball, hit a shot. And hey, Drake Powell, freshman.
Yes,
I mean, he didn't shoot very much, but his 3, I wrote down here, took a lot of notes during this game. Drake Powell's 3 with 1:13 left gave UNC the lead at 88-87. They wanted to give the lead again, I believe, and he only scored 6 points, and he was 2 for 2 from 3, so he hit 2 threes. I'm not sure when his other 3 came, but Connor, your initial thoughts? Anything different? Kind of, you want to take us into a little different direction on what your initial thoughts over this game?
Yeah, so Spenser touched on the resiliency. My biggest takeaway is thank God Seth Trimble decided to back his name out of the transfer portal, because without Seth Trimble, I'm not sure where this team would be. He has clearly put himself at the forefront for that second scoring position. He had 27 tonight. He was 10 for 14. And on the year so far after tonight, he is now 8 for 15 from three-point range, which is over 50%. I know he's not taking a ton of game, but for him to be able to hit consistently from behind the arc and take that leap from last year, it is honestly unfathomable how important he is to this team. And I didn't think we'd be sitting here talking about him this much this early in the year. But with Cadeau in foul trouble, he really stepped up. That was my number one takeaway, is the poise of Seth Trimble and the leap he took this year to where he is a consistent, reliable second scorer on this team. I don't know where we'd be without him.
Yeah, his offense is really incredible. I mean, his scoring
and rebounding too.
Yep. Oh, I mean, 10 rebounds. He plays like almost like a 6'6" small forward with his physicality and his ability to kind of rebound, defend, and leap. And his speed and body control and transition on those layups. You saw a couple of those in the second half. Seen it all, all season long. He kind of did that last year too. Like his ability to score in transition, control, attack, and then score at the rim is really amazing. He has that little height advantage over a guy like RJ or Cadeau, so he adds a different element. I mean, he was great running through his stats: 27 points, 10 for 14 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. I think both those twos came within like the first 2 minutes of the game. 5 for 5 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover. I mean, that's an unbelievable stat line. He really carried the team, and then RJ kind of fed it in at the end there with the free throws. I would think, I guess, other than those two players, like I'm interested. I mean, I don't know if we want to anything more about the actual ending. It was just kind of so fast. Like I'm so glad I stayed for this game. Like I was getting tired. I was like, God, if UNC loses this game, it's going to be kind of miserable to wake up. Do a podcast for a loss and get tired the next morning. But like I had like 6 group chats texting. I had a buddy, Dan Ryan, who like woke up to like, because he got his newborn baby, so he watched the second half. Hathaway Pendergrass went to sleep, said he watched the game in bed and then was texting at the end. But like, you're so glad you stayed up for this game because it was an incredible comeback. And I think we need to kind of talk about that more. The resiliency. What did Hubert tell him at halftime? Spenser, you've been in these kind of locker rooms. Like, what do you think? You're down to a team by 18. They're giving it to you. You're playing. You're stale. You're playing tired. What does Hubert tell them, and what do you think he kind of told them?
Yeah. So you said something there, the stale and tired thing. I wanted to touch on that. I think coming into this game, I was actually feeling pretty good about where we were because we played pretty well against Hawaii a couple of nights ago. Like, they were able to get there a day or two earlier than maybe one or two of the other teams that are in the Maui. Like, we're able to just kind of get our feet under us in that time zone a little bit, play a pretty decent game, and then, came out, like, traded some blows in the first 6-8 minutes or so, and then it just really fell apart in the first half. And then, gosh, where are we even going with this? Guys, it's 2:30 in the morning. I'm like,
what happened at halftime?
Halftime, yes. Halftime. You're getting your character called out. You're getting your toughness called out.
Yeah.
You're getting your, you're getting everything called out.
Hey, these fans flew all these hours to watch you play, and you're going to come lay an egg.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You got these podcasters staying up until 2 a.m. to podcast. You podcast for a loss? Man. No.
Do you want to get slandered on Big Hitters Only? No, you don't. Pick it up.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Seriously, though. Like, I mean, the toughness was lacking really bad. And, toughness displays in a handful of ways. There's one side of toughness that's like, can you be physical? Can you be gritty? Can you be the aggressor? But then there's another side of toughness that's like a little bit physical, but it's also the mental side of toughness. Like, can you make crisp passes? Can you make good decisions? Are you tough enough with the defender in your face to take care of the ball and, get it in good triple threat position? Like, can you do all those things? And Carolina did not do those in the first half at all. I mean, we were just tossing the ball to guys. We're getting guys are just sticking their hands in and poking the ball away with no effort whatsoever. That's a toughness thing. And we're fouling a lot. Fouling, that's an effort thing, hence a toughness thing. Turnovers, golly. I think we had more turnovers in the first half than we had in any game up to this point. That's only
12 turnovers
3 or 4
in the
games.
First half.
Yeah.
And only 3 in the second half.
Still, that
Carolina
is so
led
many.
the nation in fewest turnovers per game coming in with just over 7. So to have 12 in the first half, like you said, Ross, only 3 in the second half. But the main point, Spencer, you just hit on it. First half, 19 Dayton points off turnovers. Second half, 2.
Yep.
That's the ball game right there.
It is. Dayton hit a bunch of threes, 7 or 8 threes in the first half. So, you can't say that it was all just Carolina not playing poorly. I mean, Dayton played a really good half. Ross, I know we're going to talk about defense a little bit, so I'll hold a couple of comments. But, like, they played really solid, and they took it to us. And then we just tightened it up. We didn't foul as much in the second half. Didn't turn the ball over. Just made more sound decisions. Did a better job boxing out. Did a better job communicating on defense. I mean, again, same as the Kansas game. Just kind of tightened everything up in the second half. It's not so much a change in strategy as it was like, let's get back to playing some better basketball here.
Yeah, I think one thing to talk about is that second half lineup. Once Cadeau had 4 fouls, which was pretty early in the second half. They went with Drake Powell. He played 14 minutes. He played the majority of the second half. They went with R.J. Davis, Seth Trimble, and Drake Powell. And they mixed in a big man rotation. Ian Jackson played a lot at the beginning of the second half for Cadeau, and then didn't play again. And then it was a rotation of Jalen Washington, Joan Withers, Van Lubin got some minutes there. And really they leaned on Washington at the end there. Yeah. But I thought it was very telling they went with Drake Powell because his defense, he made some key plays and a lot of stuff that you don't even see, just rotations and defensive stops. He had a couple steals. He had 2 steals in the second half. Not much stuff that shows up on the box score, but it was clear they needed someone who was a defensive stopper, and they leaned on this freshman. I think it was huge. I think it's going to be big to pay off later in the season to give him those most minutes. And obviously they had to lean on RJ and Seth for scoring. But I want to talk – obviously Drake Powell played a big role, but I want to talk about kind of what y'all like as a big man. Like Jalen Washington had 16 minutes in the second half, and I thought he made some key plays down the stretch. He scored 9 points in the second half, and he had a couple mistakes here and there. He missed 2 free throws down the stretch there, but I don't know, who do y'all like as that 5-man when they go small? Because they went Withers, they went Washington, and they went Lubin a little bit too.
I'll go real quick here. I think this is tough because when Jalen Washington is finishing at the rim and finishing through contact like he did for that 5-minute spurt at the end of the game, I think that is worth having him on the floor. That offensive value he brings is worth it. But if he's not going to go up strong and finish, like honestly we saw a lot in the first half, he didn't get as much run in the first half. It's almost better to have Withers and Drake Powell at the 4 and 5 because at least that way you can switch everything on defense. You can at least close out on shooters a lot quicker than Jalen Washington did. I mean, the pick and pop for Dayton was killing us. That 7-1 freshman for Dayton was killing us on the pick and pop. And when you have a Withers or a Drake Powell that's able to switch that, I think that is more worth it. You do sacrifice a little size, but if you box out, it shouldn't matter that much. Although Washington finishing at the rim, I think that is where he sets himself apart. I don't know where you're going to go with this, Spencer, but I really think it's dependent on matchups.
Yeah.
You literally took the words right out of my mouth. I think you have to play it on a game-by-game, as much as a possession-by-possession basis, especially in a late-game situation. You just have to put the guy who's been playing the best that night, the guy who's got the best matchup, whoever he's going to be guarding and who's going to be guarding him, in a late-game situation. It's really hard. I like Jalen Washington a lot because of his size, and we do just get that little bit of extra rim protection. One of the things that killed us in the first half was I felt like I was watching a high-level pickup game at times because there would just be a guy who drives and he just finishes over his man, and that's it. There was no help defense. There was no big guy coming over to swat it into the bleachers. It was just kind of a one-on-one type of finish, and that happened a handful of times in the first half, not as much in the second, hence why they didn't shoot as good of a percentage. There was a play that Washington made, I might have even made a note of it, really late, in the final 2.5 minutes, where he went straight up and the guard missed the layup, we got the rebound and went down and scored. So I like Washington, but I do firmly believe that it can be matchup dependent, especially if you've got a little bit of a smaller team and Withers can match up well at the 5.
I thought Washington was great down the stretch. He had that kind of athletic play there, and he caught not really alley-oop, but a really nice pass to the basket, put it in, catch it, score it. I think, and then Spencer referenced the defensive play there too. What sucks is I think Washington, Withers, Van Lubin, and Ty Claude, they're average. And I think we've had, 5, 6 games now. And I think what we expected is kind of what it is. They're an average group. Now, average is not awful, but average is not great. It's not Armando Bacot. It's not Tyler Zeller and John Henson. It's not Kenny Meeks and Isaiah Hicks. You have 4 people, and we can't pick who's the guy to go with or the 2 guys to go with. So, and it's clear that Hubert can't. I do think the Drake Powell thing, I think we'll see him because of his defense. And look, when he was called on to make a shot, not many freshmen can nail that corner three to put UNC up in the last 2 minutes. That was huge,
It reminded
too.
me of that Dontrez Styles corner three guys in the NCAA tournament game.
Yeah,
Well,
well, look.
I don't know.
Was Styles a freshman then?
I think he was. It was either that or a sophomore. He didn't play much.
I
his
think he
first
might
year.
have been
He was a
sophomore.
sophomore. Yeah, because he transferred
Okay.
after that. But anyway,
That was a
it
nail
was huge
shot,
three.
though.
And look, this is
Nails.
early in the season. Think about how much time a freshman's going to get in February. So I think we're going to see more and more of Drake Powell because I think the defensive value is huge there, and if he can add some offense there. All right, let's talk defense here. Spencer, I kind of tasked you with breaking down what UNC is missing on defense, what they're kind of messing up to allow these teams to go up 18, 20, go on these big 11-0 runs. What's kind of the issue? I will say, I think there's like this energy, this lack of energy, and Roy always called it play with urgency. Like, look, Dayton's a good team. Like, go out and freaking play. You can't let these teams. But take the floor. Go ahead.
I can't tell you how many times Coach Rob or Coach Davis when he was an assistant or Coach Williams blew the whistle in the middle of practice, and we're all looking around like, what are you blowing the whistle for? And they're like clapping in our faces, we got to have more SOU, sense of urgency. They just weren't playing with that. And again, it kind of goes back to that little bit of toughness that I was talking about earlier. It's like, can you play with your hands out? Can you be in a defensive stance? Can you be in the correct help side positioning? Can you not have to switch a screen on the weak side of the floor away from the ball because you just worked a little bit harder? And I noticed a lot in the first half. We were switching screens off the ball, which we didn't do that. Generally speaking, we didn't switch screens except in late shot clock situations. Sometimes we would either double it or we would switch the screen. It was matchup dependent. But again, unless you got hammered or blindsided by a screen, rule of thumb was we don't switch weak side. And we did a lot of that today, which again, it messes up the matchups a little bit. And you've got to be really, really sharp on your communication. And I think it's just that little bit of everything where, not talking, leaving driving lanes open was really bad. There were a few times in the first half and the second half where this the same thing that happened against Kansas happened tonight, was with that drop coverage or that backing the screens where the big is just sagging off into the lane.
You're in no man's land.
And in totally no man's land. And you could think of it, while that guard is trying to get off the screen and recover, the idea is that the big man's sagging off, he can kind of guard two guys. You could think about it the other way around, is that he's only half guarding two guys instead of fully guarding, one guy or whatever. So kind of halfway leaving two guys open, whether it's off the dribble or off the pass, So that happened a few times. It wasn't as bad tonight as it was with Kansas. Ball screen defense was a little bit better tonight.
I have a question, Spencer, for you regarding this defense. Obviously, today's game, basketball, there's a lot more shooting big men, stretch fives especially. We saw that tonight for Dayton. What is the best way for UNC to guard that? Because a lot of times Jalen Washington was in no man's land where he wanted to help on the dribble drive penetration, and all of a sudden there's a guy that just hit 2 straight threes standing wide open at the top of the key. How do you combat that? Is it more rotation on the outside, or does he just have to stay home and hope that RJ Davis or Cadeau holds up one-on-one in the paint?
So, two ways. You can do a harder hedge, which we didn't even do all the time when I was on the team. You can do a harder hedge, like we talked about in that Kansas pod, or you can do something similar to the drop coverage, but we called it flatting the screen. So essentially that big pushes farther up. He's not hedging out and getting perpendicular to the baseline so that the guard who's dribbling has to change directions, but he's just pushing up and getting even with the guard to make him move laterally while the smaller guy recovers. That's a good way to that's a good way to stop a three-point shooting team, because you got a big guy who has a hand in the guard's face temporarily while the other guys were recovering from the screen. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. It's hard to say which one is better. I think I would say whichever one they practice more and can execute better. Really and truly.
Is there one or two players that stands out to you? It's like making mistakes that, like, all right, this guy's not the best defender.
No, not in particular. I think
It's like a team thing.
I think it's a little bit of a team thing. It's sometimes it's a positioning thing. I mean,
there's some lack of communication out there too. We saw that in the second half too.
One thing that hurts us is our guards being a little on the smaller side. I mean, Cadeau is not big. RJ is not big. And as much as I hate to say it, that dude gets hung up on ball screens a lot. He does his best, and he fights through it as best as he possibly can. But when you are 6 feet tall, getting screened by a dude who's 6'10" or bigger, it is tough to get around. It just is. And, so he gets caught up a little bit through no fault of his own other than his size, which he can't control. He does a good job most of the time. Trimble does a good job. Cadeau, does a pretty good job. Yeah, the hard part about ball screening is getting the big guy out there to be in that right position. And it's difficult to recover off a screen. I mean, it's really, really hard. It's one of the hardest things to do in basketball. That's why the ball screen is such an effective at the high school level. It's effective at the college level. It's effective at the professional level just because it is so difficult to guard. And to do it well, you have to execute perfectly.
We expected the limitations with UNC's backcourt size. I mean, and you say 6 feet. I mean, Cadeau and RJ may be 5'11". I've stood by them. Not big guys. You see them. They're probably listed at 6 feet, 6'1". They're probably 5'11", 6 feet. They're athletic. I mean, hell, how about that block by Cadeau early the first half?
Oh, my gosh, incredible play.
I mean, like, the athleticism.
Blocked it off the backboard, got the rebound.
Yeah.
And then dribbled it all the way down the court and threw a hammer pass to Trimble to hit a three in the corner. Good on Seth Trimble for hustling his butt back to be in good positioning on the fast break as well. That was an all-time sequence right there.
And then Trimble hit another three on the next possession, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
turned around.
Three.
Oh, I was jumping up and down.
Just to chase down speed, I kind of watched a couple times the replay. And, like, the speed, chase that down, the timing and everything. Like, we have some athletes on this team. I don't remember a team that had like this many backcourt athletes. If you throw in Ian Jackson, who I don't think we've really seen yet. I think he'll get at some point. He's going to get unleashed. I think he's a little.
He played some good minutes against Hawaii, from what I saw.
Yeah, and I think he played some good minutes against Kansas too. He's a little lost. He's not finding his groove, and look, he's playing behind like he's playing third or fourth fiddle in the backcourt. He's not used to that. Like he's used to being a ball dominant guard who's going to get any shot he wants. He's playing behind RJ and Seth and Cadeau. So, yeah. Okay, what else? I mean...
I got something.
Okay, go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, I wanted to transition to Carolina offense here. First half especially, it seemed like every single shot for Carolina was hard. It was a drive to the lane, double team contested floater, or a contested three with 5 seconds on the shot clock. And my theory is we don't have a back-to-the-basket big that is really a threat down there. It almost seems like, other than a few Jalen Washington buckets at the very end there, teams don't have to respect the roll man for Carolina's offense. They have to stop the guard, they put 2 on R.J. Davis, they hedge high, and then what do you do against the big man? He's not a threat. So my question is, how does Carolina kind of change their offense and maybe get more out of those big men? Because it seems like right now, the only way they score is when Cadeau or R.J. Davis spoon feeds them an easy layup off a double team.
So one of the things, and I noticed this a lot last year, actually, and I'd say it's holding true this year, is playing with a smaller lineup, you cannot be stagnant. That goes true for whatever your lineup is, but it's especially true when you've got smaller guys. You have to make the defense work. You have to change positions on the floor. They're playing a 4.5, 5 out type of system. If you just got 5 guys standing there, one guy dribbling, maybe one guy cuts or something like that, or he changes sides of the floor, that is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for tough shots like we had in the first half. It is just not a good way to play offense. So you have to move. You have to help your teammates by screening for them. You have to cut hard through the lane. One thing that I would love to see every single person on the offensive side of the floor wearing a Carolina blue jersey is cut. We don't do a whole lot of like really hard cutting, whether that's back cutting or face cutting from like the wing across the lane and like just get an easy layup. I mean, one of the easiest ways to get movement and to get action in an offense is to cut, and we don't do a great job of cutting in an organic way. That kind of 3-game, as Coach Williams called it, that freelance offense was like entirely based on cutting to the basket and setting screens for your teammates. And the movement that is in this Carolina offense is more set based. So, like there are times where we've got guys giving dribble handoffs and they're not even looking at the basket. Like I noticed there were 2 or 3 times that Seth Trimble, and this is not a bad thing. It's the way that the play is designed. But there were just a few times where, they're doing a little toss thing or out on the perimeter. Again, it's just kind of, it's not organic movement. It's designed. Yeah. Again, not a bad thing, but a little more organic movement and just cutting, screening, I think would be helpful.
And as good as Cadeau is, you saw in the first half, a lot of those contested takes are tough. And you know what? If you know ball, you know how good Elliot Cadeau is going to be. If you know ball, I've got Duke fans in my phone being like, he is the real deal. So, he's going to be great. But a couple of those drives, kind of tough. 25 seconds on the shot clock, forcing up a bad shot.
Yeah. There are a few just weird plays today. Those offensive fouls, and we're going to the video review and everything, and I'm like, man, what is going on? Like
soft rims, balls bouncing everywhere.
Yeah. We're forcing things here.
Yeah, and Cadeau didn't have the best game. He had 6 turnovers. I think he had 3 or 4 pretty early in the first half, and then
that's
foul
a
trouble.
Rarity, though. I mean, that's one of the. I mean, it's by far the worst game he's played this season. So what happens? Guys have off nights.
For sure. Okay, so look, I think one thing I've noticed is like they've got to figure out that like they've gone down double-digit points, 18, 20, whatever it was against Kansas and now Dayton, and then they start playing looser. I think there's something to that where like you don't care. Like, hey, we could lose by 30 or we could win. Mm-hmm. Like, play loose, play your offense, take the shots.
The motto of this podcast. Get loose.
Big hitters only. Yeah. Play loose. Yeah, like don't like worry about the result. And I think there's something to that in how the mentality of these college kids and throwing out Drake Powell, like, hey, Drake Powell, just go defend. Like, go do something. Ian Jackson, like, go score. And then RJ, hey, look, you've got to score, so you're going to have to take a bunch of threes. I think there's something to that. I noticed that. It's how I feel watching this team in the second half against Kansas, and then exactly the same against Dayton. And you got to bottle that and then take that mentality and use it in the first half. It's harder though. Like it's a weird it's a weird mentality because you want to play within the structure of the offense and you want to play. You don't want to jack up threes, but at some point RJ and Seth had to jack up threes because it's like, all right, we got to start scoring some points. So I think that was one thing I kind of took away from the second half. I don't know what you all think about that, but like just that freedom of playing, I think thrives with the backcourt we have. And then
I feel like it's hard to simulate that. You can't say your back's against the wall until your back is actually against the wall. Yeah. You're actually down 15 with 15 minutes left. You can't simulate that kind of pressure. But I think you're right, Ross, as far as Carolina does have to find a way to play with, like Spenser said, the sense of urgency. And they have to come out firing with the defensive intensity from the jump because they're not going to be able to go down 20 against some of these better teams. This isn't going to work once you get into conference play or even like even tomorrow night against Auburn. It's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think Dayton's a great team. I think they'll probably be up there in the A-10, probably get an NCAA bid. Like, they beat Northwestern. They have a great coach. They've also gone to the roster, like tons of Power 4 transfers, Power 5 transfers, I guess. Experienced roster. I mean, I bet them +9. I saw it at +7.5, and I almost bet them then. And I saw it again at 9. I bet them. Not to be like a betting guy that gives their bets on podcasts, but
I should have told you, Ross, take the over. Could have told you.
Did it hit too? I'm sure.
It did with flying colors.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw their experience and like going against UNC. You just know it's gonna be a close game with an experienced team. But so I think people see Dayton and the casual will be like, oh, Dayton, non-Power 5
pushover.
UNC's gonna kill them. They're the first round of Maui Invitational. Like I think this is a pretty good team, and they showed it. I don't think what they displayed tonight was fraudulent. I think they're going to be there at the end in the A10 and in the tournament there. So, all right, let's wrap it up. I'm going to give you all a question like, what did you learn? Spenser, what did you learn about UNC from this game? And then Connor hit you with the same question. What did you learn?
I'm going to say something that might make people laugh, I guess. I think we learned that we might have a little bit of a Drake May era UNC football situation going on where, we might be able to score 100,000 points, but, the defense is like a bunch of Swiss cheese, and if we can't get stops, we can't beat anybody.
Is Gene Chizik calling shots for this defense? Don't lie.
Oh, gosh, man. So, having said that, though, we've shown that we can be bad, and we've shown that we can be really, really good. If we played two halves like we did in the second half, we beat them by 10, beat them by 15. It's just like, it's not a blowout, but it's certainly not a 2-point game like it was. So, again, I've learned that we can be good, and I've learned that we can be not so good.
And also, it's like hitting threes. Like, RJ did not hit a 3 in the first half. He hit 4 threes in the second half. That's going to change how the offense looks,
Yeah. And we also learned one more thing. Hope I don't steal your thunder on this, Connor, that we need Seth Trimble to score points. It's just got to happen. Like, who would have thought that Seth Trimble, that RJ Davis dropping a 30-piece would not be the player of the game? It was Seth Trimble, in my opinion.
It was.
He had 27, still. The game of his career from an offensive perspective, for sure. But he was involved in so many different ways. So the Heels are going to need him to be great over the course of this season.
RJ got some of the free throws late, kind of bumped his points total to 30. But I feel like Seth Trimble's kind of his transition points and kind of his midway, that last 10 minutes in the second half was where Seth Trimble kind of took over. All right, Connor, what did you learn about this team?
My number one takeaway, Drake Powell is making a case to be in this closing lineup. He's a defensive menace. We touched on it earlier. Multiple tip passes, forced dribble pickups. And this is a great way to earn Hubert Davis's trust on the defensive end, I think. And he's already made the case over Cade Tyson, who only played 3 minutes tonight. We don't need to go into that. But Drake Powell he played 23 minutes. That outpaced Jalen Withers, who only played 20. I think there's a world we get to ACC play, and Drake Powell is hands down in the closing lineup, and it's not even a question. Whether or not he starts, whatever. But I think him in that closing 5, we will see more often than not, even for just defensive purposes alone. And if he can get that corner 3 consistently going down, I think that's huge, especially for a freshman. So that was my number one takeaway is I think he's starting to arrive, and I think that's huge for Carolina.
Yeah, closing lineup. He closed the whole half, it felt like. He was there. They were not taking him out, especially when Cadeau got in foul trouble. I'll just say, RJ's back. This was a classic RJ game.
Yeah.
He felt like he had to score, and he stepped up and did score. He took 19 shots, hit 8 for 19, hit 4 threes in the second half, 10 for 11 free throws. He is one of the best free throw shooters in UNC history. I think that's actually backed up statistically.
Yeah.
I know last year he was a great free throw shooter. That is such a weapon when you know a guy is going to nail free throws. I think UNC's been. I remember teams where they could not hit free throws. I've covered teams where they could nail free throws, and Caleb Love was really good at hitting free throws as well. Mm-hmm. And when you can put the ball in his hands in those late, last 2 minutes, it is such a weapon. Every team doesn't have that. I remember games UNC's lost because they didn't have a guy who could knock down free throws late.
Don't take me back to the dark days of 2014.
Who was that?
James McAdoo, JP Tokoto.
Send JP Tokoto to the line. That was the first name.
Everybody just clanging free throws, and we lose by 4. You're like, oh my gosh, if only we didn't shoot 30% from the line.
Yeah. So my kind of takeaway or what I learned is, RJ, he's not had the best start, but we're 6 games in now. UNC, are they 4-1, 5-1? Dude, I should know this, but I'm not really covering this team anymore. So anyway,
I'm not sure.
They are 4-1. Yeah, 4-1.
4-1. RJ's kind of back. 30-point game. That doesn't happen that often. Some huge shots down the stretch. Just trading blows with Dayton. If you didn't watch this game, and I think the majority of UNC fans did not watch this game. which is hilarious. I mean, I had friends going to bed at halftime, so make sure you go back and watch the second half for sure.
Great atmosphere.
Watch the first 10 minutes and then go to the end of the halftime and watch the last 15 minutes. And it was a really fun run. I'm glad we were up watching it together. All right, so UNC will play Auburn, number 4 ranked Auburn. I got the Maui Invitational bracket up right now at 11 p.m.
1 o'clock
tomorrow. So we got to decide if we want to do another pod tomorrow. So we'll talk about that off air here. And if they beat Auburn is a great team, number 4. They beat Iowa State, came back again. I mean, what a night in Maui. They had UConn
Huge
losing.
comebacks. Oh my
they had Auburn, Iowa State battling, Dayton, UNC.
all in a high school sized gym. Love to see it.
I know, dude.
So cool.
It was awesome there, and it's a
Great
great time for basketball. And if UNC beats Auburn, they will play 5 p.m. on Wednesday, which would be great. So that's a championship game. If they lose to Auburn, they'll play in the consolation game, which is 9:30 p.m. on Wednesday. So those are the options here as you look at your schedule here. So we'll talk about off air if we're going to do a podcast or not. We appreciate you listening. Remember to rate, review, subscribe. Anything else? I mean, seriously, if you have anything else, let's clear the notebook of anything you have to say. I texted y'all. We texted throughout this game. I knew it was going to be a dogfight. It was a tough game. I mean, UNC's getting tested, and they're getting tested. They got Alabama coming in. So, this team is going to be battle-tested come ACC time. I think we know who Seth Trimble is. We know who RJ is here. We learned a little bit about Drake Powell. We've got a better idea who Jalen Washington is. Anything else, Spenser, Connor?
I just want to say this, UNC fans, I think buckle up, because this team's going to take some years off your life this year, because they can easily come back from 20-point deficits. We've seen it the last 2 games, Kansas and now Dayton. They can also blow 20-point leads, and that will happen at certain points this year. So buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride, and somebody please find Roy Williams some sunscreen, because he was looking a little dark tonight.
Dude,
he's getting his rounds in at Kapalua.
Did I text that to y'all?
Yeah. You brought it to my attention, Ross.
Right.
A little dark.
Dude, he's got some skin damage. He's played a lot of golf.
He's on the golf course, man. He is out there getting his swings in.
Western NC guy. Spenser?
Belmore Forest, baby.
You got anything you want to close out with?
I was just thinking about this. I think the Heels are in really good shape. They play so fast, and to be able to play that fast for 40 minutes is impressive. So our guys are in good shape. So that bodes well for the rest of the season, you know?
I thought you meant they're in good shape, we're a good team.
No,
ready to roll.
They've got good wind,
stamina,
good VO2 max.
There you go.
Dude,
yeah,
what a tough.
They've been running, man.
You beat a tough Dayton team, and you got Auburn next round, number 14.
It's going to be a bruiser tomorrow night, man.
Yeah, this is fun. This is a fun week for basketball for sure. And look, kind of opens up there with UConn out as well. All right, guys, it is 2:59 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Where would you rather be? In our Connor, how old? You're in your 20s, Connor, right?
24, Ross.
How old are you, Spenser?
31.
Okay, yeah. Where would you rather be in your 30s? Jeez.
This is what the fans come for. This is the content, the 3 a.m. grind for Big Hitters Only. I'm going to stay up here 45 minutes and publish this out just for the fans. Come on.
I want to be more of those. Yeah, Connor. Shout out to Connor. He's been getting to your feed. He's got to edit. And then we shout out to Garrett, who is doing our cover art, who got us a nice cover art for this podcast. All right, guys. Rate, review, subscribe, follow, like, engage. And we will talk to you next time, whether it be after the Auburn game or maybe after the championship game. We'll give you at least one podcast in the next 2 days. Thank you so much for listening.